Valentine ribbon wreath using the Dollar Tree heart wreath frames. I'm going to use 2 of the Dollar Tree wire heart frames, and we're going to wrap them in ribbon. So you'll want to choose your favorite 1.5-inch wired Valentine themed ribbon and have your hot glue gun plugged in. And we're going to wrap both of our wire heart frames with the same ribbon for this tutorial. Again, friends, this is just a recipe, so feel free to use the ribbon of your choice. Feel free to change your ribbon between the 2 frames. I'm going to actually pull off a manageable strip here because my ribbon spool is large. If you have a smaller standard size ribbon roll such as this, just go ahead and keep that intact so you don't have pieces. And all we're going to do, friends, is wrap this entire frame with our ribbon. So I'm going to start out on a straight side, and then we're going to work our way around. So I'm just going to put a stripe of blue and then fold my ribbon over onto that glue. And I'm going to use my scissors to press that down and give it a good solid hold. Once your ribbon is nice and anchored down, we're just going to grab our ribbon and wrap. So we're just going to pull that pretty tautly, making sure that that glue is not going to come undone, and overlap itself by half a width's worth of ribbon. And we're just going to wrap, wrap, wrap. Near every crossbar, you're going to want to add a dollop of glue to the wire of your frame just to make sure that your ribbon doesn't slide. You can see that I'm doing this more often on the curvature of the heart to keep that in its place. We'll repeat that exact same process on the second frame. Grab your hot glue gun and add a generous amount of hot glue to the bottom of your first wreath. Now grab your second wreath and add that catty corner and give it a good hard press. I'm going to go ahead and add my heavy duty cutters right on top to give that some weight, and give it a couple of minutes to dry while I grab 2 pipe cleaners. After you've given that glue a couple of minutes to dry, go ahead and remove that heavy weight, and then we're going to wrap a pipe cleaner around the 2 connecting points of our hearts for some extra security. Make sure you pull your pipe cleaners as tightly as you can and give it 3 or 4 super tight twists. Now we'll add our second pipe cleaner about 1 inch apart from the first. Now we'll grab our scissors or small crafting snips and just trim off the excess bits of those pipe cleaners. Let's go ahead and make our bow for the connecting point of our hearts. I've grabbed a 2.5-inch velvet ribbon from the Dollar Tree. I'm going to use a solid red 1.5-inch glitter, and then we'll use a little bit of the same ribbon that we wrapped our wire wreath frames in. The Dollar Tree ribbon, unfortunately, is only 1 yard, so we're going to cut that into 4ths and use that as ribbon tails. Let's go ahead and make a quick and easy hand bow. We're going to start out with those 4 pieces of velvet ribbon from the Dollar Tree and add those to our left working hand first as ribbon tails. I've grabbed my 1.5-inch wired red glitter ribbon, and I'm going to make 2 tails and 4 loops. Those loops will be approximately 4 to 5 inches in length. I've placed that red ribbon underneath my thumb, and I'm folding that over into a 4 to 5 inch loop, pinching that underneath my thumb, giving it a hard twist so it's always pretty side out, and making my next loop. To make sure your loops are the same length, just pull them up and connect them to one another to make sure they reach the same spot. And now we're on to loop number 3. Once we've got the 4 loops, I'm going to go ahead and trim off that excess ribbon, leaving about a 10-inch tail. And now we're on to the last ribbon. I'll be making those tails between 8 and 10 inches in length, and again, I'll be making 4 loops. For this ribbon type, I'm going to make those loops just a little bit smaller. I would guess that they are 3.5 to 4 inches in length. Once you've got your 4 loops, go ahead and trim off an 8 to 10 inch ribbon tail. I've just grabbed a matching pipe cleaner and I'm going to give that 3 or 4 super tight twists on the back side of my bow to secure it. I'm going to do a rough fluff of the bow at this point. Basically, I'm just going to make sure those tails are going in the right direction as well as the loops. Let's get that attached to our wreath. I'm just going to connect that right where the 2 hearts meet. I'm going to wrap it around the back side and secure that pipe cleaner by giving it 3 or 4 super tight twists. All right, let's go ahead and fluff out those tails and loops. I'm just going to spread those loops apart and open them up with my fingers until they're in the placement that I'm happy with. I'm going to angle trim all of the 1.5 inch ribbon tails, and then I'm going to curl them. I keep an old cardboard insert from a 10-inch roll of Deco mesh in my toolbox, which is the perfect item to curl your ribbon. Just wrap that around that tube and curl it all the way to the center of that ribbon. If you're unhappy with your curls, you can do it as many times as you need. I've decided to dovetail the 2.5 inch wide ribbon to give it a nice clean finish. To dovetail, you're just going to fold that ribbon in half and then with your scissors, place them on the folded side of your ribbon, not the open side, and cut up diagonally to the corner to give you that pretty dovetail V. Here I'm just taking a quick moment to refluff my loops. Time for the last step. I grabbed a couple of heart picks from the Dollar Tree that are on a handy little clamp, and so I'm going to find 2 places near the center of the underside of that bow, clamp them in place, and give them a squirt of hot glue to keep them secure. One more final fluff of our bow and ribbon tails, and this beauty is finished. Okay, let's move on to our next design. Easy Bunny Spring Wreath using the Dollar Tree Grapevine Bunny Frame. You'll find a full materials list for you below in the description of this video so that you'll have everything you need to recreate this beauty. Of course, if you'd rather just purchase it, I'll leave a link for my Etsy shop below as well. Go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun and let's talk about what we're going to build today's design on. So this is actually the 26-inch bunny wreath frame that comes from the plus section of the Dollar Tree. It's got some chicken wire on the background here and a pretty decent little hanger. And so we're going to dress this guy up to make a super cute door hanger in about 15 minutes. So while our hot glue gun is heating up, guys, let me just show you the florals that we're going to use in today's creation. This bunch actually came from Hobby Lobby. Let's see. It's item number 1080175. It's just a single floral bush with lots of different shades of pink, orange, and yellow little flowers and variegated greenery. And so those colors are how I determined what ribbon to use. I've just grabbed 3 rolls of 1.5 inch wired ribbon that coordinate with our flowers. So let's scoot our bunny off to the side and make our bow. Generally, I make my bows by hand, but because I'm nursing an injury, we're going to use the bow dabra today. If you're not familiar with the bow dabra, it's just a tool to help you make bows. This is what it looks like. It's plastic. It's got a wand that runs down the center, also a center split for adding ribbon. I'm also going to grab a ruler, my pair of scissors, and a 6-inch clear zip tie. You could also use a pipe cleaner or floral wire if that's your preference. So we're going to start with our yellow 1.5 inch ribbon. And so we're going to measure out 8-inch tails. You can use your self-healing mat to measure that out or just a standard ruler. So I've identified that 8-inch mark. I'm pinching my ribbon. I'm going to give that a hard twist and run that right down the center of my bow dabra. And I want 4-inch loops, guys, so I'm going to actually measure out to the 8-inch mark. I'm going to pinch that ribbon, and then when I fold that over onto itself, it'll become a 4-inch loop. I'm going to give that a hard twist because we always want that pretty side up. We're going to measure out another 8 inches to give us that 4-inch loop. Give that ribbon a pinch. Run that down into our bow dabra. And if you want to double check your loops, guys, just to make sure they're the same size, you can fold them up onto themselves like so, and as long as they meet in the same spot approximately, your loops are good to go. And we'll measure out an 8-inch tail. Okay, for the next ribbon, I'm going to add the hot pink with Swiss polka dots, and I'm going to use my first ribbon as my guide. Guys, you're welcome to measure if that's easier for you. So we're going to continue with those 8-inch tails, but reduce our loops by about a ½ inch or so for each ribbon stack. So we're doing the 2 loops and 2 tails again. As you can see, that's about a ½ inch shorter. We'll go ahead and run that tail out so that it's basically as long as that previous tail, and cut off that ribbon. I'm going to use my bow dabra arm just to press and condense down on that ribbon stack. Then we're going to move on to the orange with white polka dot. Again, approximately 8 inches worth of a tail. Hard twist so that pretty side is up. So you want that orange ribbon to, again, be about a ½ inch shorter than our hot pink loops. And again, 2 loops and 2 tails. We'll run that tail out approximately the same length as the previous, and cut that guy off. And we're going to with another layer of the Swiss polka dot. So we'll run out our approximate 8-inch tail. We're going to give that a hard twist so it's pretty side out. You can make these loops basically the same length as the orange, and again about a ½ inch smaller on those loops. So we've made those 2 loops and 2 tails of our Swiss polka dot again. We'll run those tails out at that same approximate 8-inch marker. And we're going to make a single loop with our yellow. So I'm going to make these tails about 2 inches or so shorter than all the other tails. So I've run the ribbon down. I'm going to make a single loop. And as you can see, that loop's probably 1.5 to 2 inches. Running that tail out at about 6 inches in length. And then that's it for our bow ribbon stack. So we'll take our bow dabra arm here. We're going to press down on this ribbon stack, really condense that together. You'll want to have your zip tie or floral wire or pipe cleaner handy so that we can secure our bow, and we're going to gently lift this guy up out of the bow dabra, keeping that stack nicely condensed, and then we'll secure our bow stack. You're going to want to pull that tight, and then trim off that excess bit of zip tie. Before we fluff out our bows, guys, I'm going to go ahead and trim my tails, and I'm going to just angle trim. You're welcome to dovetail if you prefer. And we're going to trim every single tail. Now that we've got those ends all trimmed, I'm just going to pull all of my tails down, and we'll worry about the loops in just a short bit. So once you've got all of your tails going in the right direction, we're going to just do a quick rough fluff of our bow. And I always start at the bottom. First, I pull my loops where I want them. There's no right or wrong way to do this, guys. You're welcome to fluff your bow how you wish. So I'm just kind of making an X pattern here with those back 2 loops. I'm pulling an X with the next layer. And then we've got our little single loop in the middle. Once you've got your loops where you want them, just go ahead and open them up. So you're literally just making a circle and not looking for perfection here, guys. We're going to fluff this guy out the way we want it. Once we get it into our door hanger, we just want an idea of what this beauty is going to look like so that we can start positioning. All right, now that we've got the rough fluff done, let's bring our florals and our bunny to our work area. You're going to want this round hanger on the back side of your bunny wreath so that you or your customer hang that up on the door. So now it's time to prepare our florals. We're just going to cut off this price tag here. And I'm going to use this entire bush. There are 11 stems on our bush. And so what I'm going to do, guys, is just trim this, each and every stem off the bush, about 2 inches or so below where the greenery ends. It's a heavy duty floral. We'll have to use our big cutters for this guy. All right, so we've got 11 stems here. And what my vision is for this design is to add our bow off to the side of our bunny's neck here and have a floral spray on either side. And so what I'm going to do is just lay my florals back and forth just like this so that that 2-inch stem that we cut kind of meets in the middle. And remember, we had 11 stems from that bush. I'm going to hold one off to the side. So now that we've got our 10 stems laying alternatingly into a little swag pile, I'm going to grab a 12-inch zip tie and just run that underneath. And then we're going to cinch these guys all together. And before you cinch it 100%, just make sure all of your florals are tucked into that zip tie. And then cinch that guy basically as tight as you can get it. And then trim off that excess bit of zip tie. So we've just made like a miniature floral swag. Once I do that, friends, I like to take my hot glue gun and just run a couple of stripes of glue right over that zip tie. We'll give it a couple of minutes to dry, and then we'll flip this floral swag over and do the same thing to the back side. Once your floral swag is dry, set that guy off to the side a little bit and bring your bunny base back into your work area. And you're going to grab a standard 12-inch pipe cleaner. I grabbed a brown that matches the Grapevine pretty well, so it blends in nicely. Of course, you could also use a zip tie or a floral wire if that's your preference. And what we're going to do here, guys, is wrap this right around the center of our swag. And then just give it a couple of tight twists so it doesn't go anywhere. It should be right on top of that glue. And then we're going to add this guy to our bunny. So you can add it anywhere you'd like, in the center or off to either side. I'm going to come in here off to the left. And we're going to secure this guy right around that bunny's frame here. And so I'm going to pull that as tight as I can get it. And give it 4 or 5 super tight twists. And then I'm just going to trim off the excess bit of my pipe cleaner here. And I'm going to push that little tail right under and out of the way, just like that. So now our floral swag is nice and attached. So it just quickly came together super cute. Now the next thing we need to do is attach our bow. And so we've done the rough fluff. We're going to lay that single button loop off to the side, grab another matching pipe cleaner and run that right around our bow stack. We're going to cinch it up really tight and give it a couple of twists. And now we're going to layer this right on top of the center of our floral swag, right where that glue is, and attach our bow. So we're going to hold that guy in place, flip it over, and cinch up that pipe cleaner. And again, you could also use floral wire or zip ties if that's your preference. Once you've tightened that and twisted that 4 or 5 times, just go ahead and trim off those excess bits and just push down and tuck away that little tail. All right. Now it's time to fluff out our florals and our bow. So remember, our florals are on a wire stem, which means you can bend them and shape them any way you want. So take a couple of minutes and fluff out your florals. I'm just going to basically bring them to life a little bit, have them going in all different directions. Once you've fluffed out your florals, go ahead and do a final fluff with your bow. And again, I'm just opening loops, waking this bow up. I always start on the bottom, but that's personal preference. You can fluff your bow however you would like. And then that center little button loop is going to go right over the middle, just like that. And then with our tails, I like to take my fingers and just run them up and over those tails to give them a little curve. So I'm basically just pulling them to the ceiling to get some curve. How stinking cute is this guy? Now remember, we had reserved one of our floral stems in case we needed some filler, which I feel like we need some right in here. I'm gonna trim this guy in half and then add these 2 pieces in. So I'm going to run some hot glue right there on that stem, about 1 inch or so worth. I'll scooch those tails out of the way. I'm just poking that right down into the grapevine. And then of course you can bend it a little bit if you'd like to really perk that guy up and give it some life. And just like that, guys, we have made a super cute Easter bunny door hanger. Okay, on to the next design. Let's make a patriotic wreath. Let me show you some of the supplies we'll be using today, friends. So I've got this cute stars and stripes patriotic sign. This came from the Dollar Tree. I've got 6 rolls of Deco mesh, all from the Dollar Tree, and you can see it's in a red, white, and blue theme. The 14-inch wire wreath frame, also from the Dollar Tree. And you're going to need between 45 and 50 zip ties, friends. These are 6-inch length zip ties. You can use any length that you would like. You're also going to need 2 mounting brackets. You'll also need your ruler, a good pair of scissors, and your hot glue gun. And friends, a list of all of these supplies and tools that we'll be using today will be below in the description of this video. If you are new to my channel, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Stillwater's Wreath Designs is all about front door decor, specifically wreaths and door swags. New tutorials upload every week, and I'd love for you to hit that subscribe button and join our little creative community here. So the first thing we need to do, friends, is prepare our sign, and it comes with this little twine hanger. We don't need that, so go ahead and cut that guy right off. And we need to get this sign prepped, friends. And so what we're going to do is use 2 mounting squares so that we can attach our sign to our wreath when we get to that point. And if you're new to wreath making, friends, and you're not familiar with mounting squares, they are definitely a wreath maker's best friend, or at least one of them. These guys are just 1 inch by inch square. They're plastic on the front, and I'm not sure if the camera's capturing that, but there's holes all the way around so that you can run a zip tie, pipe cleaners, floral stems, whatever you'd like, through the mounting brackets to attach your sign or embellishment right down into your wreath. Then on the back side, friends, you've got a really super sticky piece of 3M tape. And so you just literally peel the backing off. I typically use 2 mounting brackets for any type of sign. And you just push those guys right down onto your sign. They don't have to be square, friends. Nobody's going to see those. And then I prefer to run a quick bead of glue right around that mounting bracket where it touches the sign, just for some extra strength and stability. So we'll do that for both of these brackets here. Perfect. And now we'll just set this sign off to the side to dry. And that's going to be the only time you need your glue gun. So you can go ahead and unplug that. Go ahead and cut the tag off of your wire wreath frame. And you probably noticed earlier, friends, that I've actually grabbed 2 of each roll of Deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. Friends, let's just have a quick wreath frame 101 here. If you're new to wreath making, this is what's called a wire wreath frame. You can get these nearly anywhere. They come in all different diameters. This is the 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. And so this entire piece is your wire wreath frame. It's got 4 rings, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then it's also got 6 crossbars. These are the crossbars. And then the distance between one crossbar and the next is considered a section. So you've got 6 sections on the 14-inch frame. And this is a new to me method, friends. I'm excited to give this a try. This entire wreath is going to be made out of Dollar Tree materials. So again, very cost effective and affordable. The only thing that did not come from the Dollar Tree for my purposes today, friends, would be my 6-inch zip ties. You can actually buy these in bulk online from any wreath making supply warehouse or even Amazon. I will link these below for you. This 6-inch zip tie is perfect for deco mesh attachments, embellishments, attachments, things of that sort. So definitely something you want to keep in your stash. And you're going to need your ruler handy and a good pair of scissors. So let me show you what we're going to do here, friends. We've got these 3 rolls of 6-inch deco mesh from the Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to cut off the edge of this blue one. It looks a little raggedy here, just to give it that clean cut. Let's take a look at our other 2 rolls. That looks pretty good, and that looks pretty good, actually. So if you're new to working with Deco Mesh, friends, Deco Mesh loves to fray. So anytime you can create a wreath with minimal amounts of cuts, that really reduces the fray and helps preserve the longevity of your wreath. And this particular bubble wreath has very few cuts, so I'm excited to give it a try. I'm just going to pull out a handful of my zip ties and have those easily accessible. And again, you're going to use, I would say, between 45 and 50 of these guys. So you need a good amount available to you. You can see that the Deco Mesh likes to curl in on itself, friends, basically following the roll of how it came to you. And we're going to lay all 3 colors on top of one another. A solid white would have looked equally great with this wreath idea, but my particular Dollar Tree didn't have any available. So we're going to just make do. We're going to marry up those ends pretty well. And we're just laying these guys right on top of one another. Like so. Now hang with me, friends. This is going to go somewhere cute, I promise. So once you've got all 3 of your rolls laying on top of each other, you're going to just kind of scrunch and gather that end into your fingers until you've got all of that Deco Mesh bunched up together nicely. And you've got this 1 to 1.5 inch tail. I'm just going to trim these scragglies off. So once you have that bunch, friends, go ahead and grab your wire wreath frame, and all of our Deco Mesh here, we're going to be focusing on rings 2 and 3, those inner 2 metal rings on your wreath form. And we want to start out on the crossbar. just because that's a good anchor, right? And so I'm going to run my 6-inch zip tie here, if you can see. Hopefully the camera's capturing that for you. Right over the very middle space, so between rings 2 and 3. Then I'm going to take my deco mesh and lay that right on top of that crossbar, making sure I'm keeping that inch or so tail. I'm going to take my zip tie and cinch this guy down. And because we've gone over that crossbar, it's really going to anchor in nicely. So you really want to cinch that tight, tight, tight. One other tool I forgot to mention earlier, friends, you'll need a good pair of small snips. If you don't have any in your wreath making stash, I'll leave a link for my favorite pair below so you can grab some if you'd like. Then you'll snip off that excess bit of zip tie. And we're going to basically make 7 bubbles per section. And remember, section is from one crossbar to the next. And so what you're going to do, friends, is take your ruler, and where your zip tie is, you're going to measure out 8 inches, okay? So I'm measuring out 8 inches, doesn't have to be perfect. I'm then going to scrunch and gather into my fingers. I'm going to come back in to my wreath frame. We're going to take our zip tie and wrap that around rings 2 and 3 of our wreath base, those inner 2 rings. We're going to start the zip tie right at that 8 inches that we've measured out. We're going to scooch that deco mesh so that we can get it as close to that recent most recent zip tie that we anchored it down with. And we're going to cinch that guy tight, trim off our excess bit of zip tie, and we've just made our first deco mesh bubble. So you can see it's tall, it's fairly thin, and we've abutted that as best as we can. They will slide a little bit, that's totally fine. And we're going to do this over and over, and you want to add 7 deco mesh bubbles to each section. And so again, we're going to measure out to that 8-inch mark. And again, not looking for perfection. Nobody's going to be measuring your bubbles. Scrunch and gather that into your hand. Grab a zip tie. Wrap that around rings 2 and 3. Add that right around where your 8-inch mark was, where your hand was. I'm just cinching it nearly all the way down. I'm going to make sure my mesh there isn't going anywhere, and then I'll shove this guy over and cinch it down. Grab my snips, trim off that excess bit of zip tie, and we've just added our second bubble. We're going to do this whole section together, friends, and then we'll zoom through. Remember, we're going to add 7 deco mesh bubbles per section. You may have to straighten your mesh up a little bit from time to time. It just takes a jiffy. So again, we're going to measure from our most recent zip tie out to 8 inches. We'll scrunch and gather that together in our fingers. We're going to grab one of our zip ties and run that around rings 2 and 3, those center 2 rings. We're going to cinch that down most of the way. Just making sure our deco mesh is all bunched up together, going the right direction. I'll scooch that guy over and cinch it down the rest of the way. And we're going to take our snips and trim off the tail of that zip tie. We've now added 3 deco mesh bubbles, friends. Let's move on to the next. I'm going to take my ruler, measure out 8 inches, scrunch and gather this mesh into my hands. I'll grab a hold of it with one hand, grab a zip tie with the other, run it around rings 2 and 3. Up over our deco mesh, and I'm going to cinch that guy down most of the way. Make sure our deco mesh is all going the right direction. Scoot that bubble over and cinch it down the rest of the way. I'll grab my snips, trim off the tail of that zip tie. We've now added 4 deco mesh bubbles, and we're on to bubble number 5. We're going to measure out 8 inches. Let me straighten up my mesh here, it's a little squirrely. Measure out 8 inches. I'm just going to scrunch and gather that mesh into our hands. Make sure that mesh is all going the right direction. We'll grab a zip tie, run it around rings 2 and 3. We'll cinch this guy down most of the way. Scoot him over where he belongs. Finish cinching down our zip tie here. Grab our snips and trim off that tail. We're on to bubble number 6, friends. Just going to measure out 8 inches from most recent zip tie. Scrunch and gather in my fingers. Grab a zip tie. As you get towards the last couple of bubbles here, it's a little bit tougher, friends. Just give yourself some grace. Wrap that zip tie around rings 2 and 3, those center 2 rings. Cinch that guy down most of the way. Push that bubble in. Cinch it down the rest of the way and trim off the tail of that zip tie. All right, friends, we're on to bubble number 7. Last bubble for this section, so I'm just going to measure out 8 inches, scrunch and gather with my fingers. I'm going to grab a zip tie, run that through rings 2 and 3 right there in the center, those center 2 rings. I'll anchor it down most of the way. Make sure that deco mesh didn't get squirrely. I'm just straightening it out a little bit with my fingers, and then I'll push it over to the side, cinch it down the rest of the way, and trim off that tail. You can then just kind of come through and fluff that a little bit. You know, if you've got some room, you can scooch them a little bit. Perfect. So we've added our first section of 8-inch deco mesh bubbles, friends, and we're going to continue this process all the way around our wire wreath frame. At some point, probably halfway through, maybe a little bit further past, you'll have to go ahead and break out your second rolls of deco mesh. You'll just follow that same method that we did when we began here and anchor it down with an inch tail. So go ahead and fill in the rest of your wire wreath frame with your 8-inch bubbles, 7 per section, and I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, I've fully loaded this wreath base with all of these super cute bubble deco mesh bubbles. And now I'm just going to trim off this last little bit of mesh, leaving approximately an inch or so tail. Just be real careful where you cut, friends. You don't want to accidentally cut one of your bubbles. There we go. So friends, this is all I had left. Ironically, I just had a teeny tiny smidge of both the red, the blue and the red, white, and blue, and none of the white. I'm not really sure how that happened, but nonetheless, here we have it, friends. And so the back of your wreath should look something like this, pretty clean. And the front of your wreath is full of all these super cute bubbles. Now, let me have a little full disclosure moment, friends. I don't generally use, in fact, now that I think about it, this is probably the first time I've ever used in a tutorial Dollar Tree mesh, because as I'm sure you discovered when you were making this, there's a lot of strings, a lot of fraying. It's a little bit sloppy and unprofessional. And because of that, I choose to use nearly always a much higher quality deco mesh. But because this wreath involved no cutting other than our ends, I thought that it would be safe to try, and so far I'm pleased with it. And so now that we've loaded our wire frame with bubbles, friends, it's time to fluff the bubbles. And so let me show you what fluffing the bubbles means. You're going to start at any bubble. At this point, there's no top or bottom of your wreath. And we're just going to kind of pull this mesh apart. So right now, all 3 layers of your deco mesh are laying one on top of the other, and they're scrunched together to give you this bubble method. And we're just going to kind of pull them apart. And so you've got 3 layers in there, and we're just separating the 3 layers. And I kind of want to go back and forth. So since I pulled the blue to the outside on this bubble, on the next one, I'm just going to pull it to the inside. And you're basically just pulling on your deco mesh with really no rhyme or reason, other than you don't want to follow the same pattern twice. So we're going to work our way through this deco mesh bubble method wreath, separating those bubbles just by tugging on them, and they don't have to be 100% separate. It's however you want to do it. It's your wreath. Just don't follow the same steps every time, because you really want to give lots of variety. So go ahead and separate all of your bubbles one by one, working your way through your wreath here, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, we've fluffed out all of our bubbles, and look how cute this is. You know, I keep looking at this, and quite honestly, I'm surprised it turned out as cute as it did. If you find any stowaway strings from your deco mesh, just go ahead and trim them off. And our next step, friends, is to add our decorative sign. At this point, it's nice and dry, and you can attach this guy down with some extra long zip ties, some pipe cleaners or Chanel stems, or some floral wire. I always like to use floral wire stems to attach my signs and my heavier embellishment, friends. I just feel like that they're easier to work with. If you are new to wreath making, you're definitely going to want to add some floral wire stems to your wreath stash, friends. They're great for adding pieces into deco mesh because they poke right through. I'll actually leave a link for these below if you'd like to grab some and add them to your wreath making stash. They're very cost effective. And these guys, friends, are 18 inches in length, and they're a heavier gauge, so they're nice and sturdy. And I just fold that in half loosely just to find that V center point, which tells me where the middle of that floral wire is, and I run it right through my bracket. And then I'm just giving it a couple of loose twists so it doesn't get swirly and slide off. Then we'll do the same thing to add our second. Folded it into a V to find that center, running it through my mounting bracket and giving it a couple of loose twists. Of course, you can add your sign depending on what you're using anywhere on your wreath that you would like. I'm actually going to add my sign right in the middle. I think that would be just perfect. And so all you're going to do, friends, one at a time here, or one side at a time, I should say, is just take those floral wires and poke them right in through your mesh. I'm going to go ahead and separate a bubble. I am with my fingers kind of trying to find an area by a crossbar just for this upper piece to keep it from sliding it around. Give yourself some grace, friends. This takes a little bit of time. And again, I'm just parting my deco mesh bubbles to add that guy in. Once my wires are ran through, I'm just going to make sure that that sign's laying where I want it to be, and then I'm going to hold it in place with my hands and flip it over. And as you can see, friends, here's our 2 wires, and I'm just going to give those 3 or 4 tight twists. And by tight, friends, what I mean is probably 80% tension. You want it tight enough that it's not going to go anywhere, but you don't want it so tight that your sign recedes into your wreath or the tension pulls off that mounting bracket. And you can see that my wire is on this crossbar here. That's not super necessary, I guess, since we've got all of these zip ties that can help keep it from sliding, but you definitely want to mount that either on the 2nd or 3rd ring. You don't want it on the outer or inner, or it will for sure slide. Once you've given that several twists, go ahead and trim off that excess bit of floral wire. And then take your needle nose pliers, pinch those ends together. And then I'm just going to kind of curl it back into the wreath, friends, because I don't want to poke myself or have my customer poke themselves. Perfect. And so now we're going to do the exact same thing on the bottom. Just make sure that your sign is centered before you poke it through. We'll flip it around and look how cute that is, friends. So at this point, you know, this wreath is 100% with Dollar Tree materials, with the exception of our 6-inch zip ties. Friends, look how super cute this turned out. We have made this entire beauty for exactly $10. Now, that doesn't include your tax or the cost for your zip ties. So at this point, it is super cute as it is, but of course, you know me, I'd like to add a bougie bow. So bear with me 1 second while I make a super quick and easy bow to add in for a little extra flair, and I'll meet you back here. Friends, I've just thrown together a quick hand bow here. If you are new to wreath making or bow making and would like a step-by-step tutorial, I'll leave a couple of links for you below in the description of this video. That'll give you some of that step-by-step guidance when it comes to bow making. So I'm just going to add this right up here in the corner. I am using floral wire stems to secure this guy down just like we did earlier. And I'm going to wrap it right around the corner here. I'm going to make sure that goes on nice and tight so that it doesn't go anywhere. And then I'll take my snips and trim off that excess bit of floral wire. And we'll toss those guys away. I'm going to grab my needle nose pliers again, pinch those ends together, and curl it back into the wreath so it doesn't poke us or our customer. Then I'm going to take a couple of minutes here and just fluff out my bow. I've got 4 loops of this 2.5-inch ribbon with those super cute glittery stars. Adorable. And then I've got just 2 loops of our red and white star. So I'm going to make the 2.5-inch in a broad X, as you can see here. And then I'm just going to run the red and white 1.5-inch straight across, or I should say diagonal since we're up here in the corner. And then I'm just going to pull my tails here from the stars and the stripes, and I'm going to dovetail them to match our sign. Of course, you could also angle cut. To dovetail, friends, that just gives you this pretty V on your ribbon. And all you do is fold your ribbon in half, your tail in half, and you're going to place your scissors on the folded side, not the open side. Come down 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch, cut up on the diagonal, and then when you open that, that'll give you that pretty V. And because it's wired, friends, you can shape it the way you'd like. I'm just going to run my fingers over it and pull it up towards my face and then kind of curve down at the ends. And I'm going to dovetail my 1.5-inch as well. And I like to cut things at different lengths. I feel like it just gives it a little bit more character. But you can certainly trim your ends how you wish. My only tried and true hard guidance is that you want to make sure that your tails are not going to cover your sign. I'm going to cut these considerably shorter. We'll see how this looks. We can always take more off, but we can't put it back on. So I always like to cut cautiously. How cute is that, friends? Oh my goodness. We are definitely getting our patriotic vibe going here. You can grab some ribbon also from the Dollar Tree. This is something I just had in my stash. So this is a super cute and easy patriotic wreath that you can make that's very budget friendly.
Okay, on to the next design.
Let's make a double ruffle deco mesh summer wreath. Let me show you some of the supplies we'll be using. This is a 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. This cute sign is also from the Dollar Tree. We're going to be using 3 different color schemes of 10-inch deco mesh. We've got the black and white plaid, the lime green, and the red with white striping. And then I've grabbed a bunch of different kinds of wired ribbon that we'll review here in just a little bit. You're also going to need 18 coordinating pipe cleaners or Chanel stems, a good pair of scissors, your rotary cutter and mat if that's the way you cut your mesh, and of course your hot glue gun. Set my sign off to the side here, friends. The first thing we need to do is prep our wire wreath frame. If you are new to my channel, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to have you. Please drop a comment below if this is your first time watching a video, or even if it's not, just let me know what state you're from. I always like to hear where all my crafty friends are at. So if you're brand spanking new to wreath making, let me just give you a little Wreath 101 here. Again, this is a 14-inch wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. As you can see, there are 4 wires that go around this wreath. So we'll start with the inner and just call them 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's also several crossbars. And then there are 6 sections that work all the way around your wreath. Go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun, friends. Just another quick pro tip for you here. The round signs at the Dollar Tree, regardless of season, nearly always fit perfectly and marry really nicely to their 14-inch wire wreath frame. So if you're ever in the mood to make a wreath on your own, these are great to pair together. So go ahead and grab your Chanel stems or pipe cleaners, and we need to load this wire wreath frame with our pipe cleaners so that we can then attach our deco mesh. And so the first thing we're going to do, friends, is add 1 pipe cleaner to the inner 2 bars of each section. There's 6 sections, remember, so we'll be doing this 6 times. And so you're going to just wrap your pipe cleaner around rings 1 and 2 in the center of each section between those crossbars. And what you're going to do is just find that center, doesn't have to be perfect, and give it a couple of tight twists, and then point those Chanel stems inward. So let's work our way through this wreath frame real quick, and we'll get those added into all sections. Again, wrapping your pipe cleaner around rings 1 and 2, placing 1 per section, a couple of tight twists there, and then point those guys inwards. Let's speed through this part, friends. All right, once you've added in 1 pipe cleaner per section on those inner 2 rings, now it's time to add some pipe cleaners to the outer 2 rings. So you should have 6 loaded into your wreath frame now. Let's add 2 more per section. So we're going to follow that same method, friends, but we're going to add 2 pipe cleaners to each section, this time wrapping them around rings 3 and 4, just centering them both. So each one's about 1/3 of the way through. Give it a couple of tight twists, and this time point those guys outward away from the center of your wreath. So as you can see here, friends, and again, not looking for perfection. Nobody's going to measure, I promise. So now we've added 2 pipe cleaners or Chanel stems around rings 3 and 4, so that each one is about 1/3 of the way through those 2 crossbars. And so now we've got a total of 3 Chanel stem ties or pipe cleaner ties in this section, so we can move on to the next. We'll do 1 more set together here, friends, and then we'll speed through. So grab your pipe cleaner, wrap it 1/3 of the way in from your crossbar. go ahead and wrap it around rings 3 and 4. Give it a couple of tight twists and then point those guys outwards. We'll do one more here together. That's around rings 3 and 4. Couple of tight twists and pointing outwards. Now we've added all 3 to the next section. Let's go ahead and speed through and get the rest of our pipe cleaners added in. Then I'll meet you back here. Go ahead and grab your glue gun, and where every pipe cleaner touches the wreath frame, you're just going to run a 1/2 inch bead of glue right over one of the points of contact. You don't need to do both, so that it's touching both the pipe cleaner and then a little bit of your wreath frame. That'll just give it some extra stability and keep it from sliding around while we make our wreath. Go ahead and set this off to the side so it can have a little bit of time to dry. The next step of our process here, friends, is to get our sign ready. You can go ahead and cut off the hanger here. We don't need that, and just toss that away. And then we're going to flip our sign over, and we're going to add 2 mounting brackets to our sign that will help us attach it to our wreath frame. So if you are new to mounting brackets, friend, they are Wreath Maker's bestie. They are a 1 by 1 inch square plastic attachment for your wreath that on the front facing side has got 4 holes all the way around for you to add your pipe cleaners, floral wires, zip ties, whatever you want to use to attach your sign to your wreath. And then on the back, it's got some 3M super sticky tape that will, you know, stick to your sign. So you just press those down wherever you'd like to attach your sign. Be thinking about that when you put them down. I usually use 2, sometimes 3 if the sign's really big or heavy. Just give it a good push. They are pretty sturdy, friends, but I like to always double check everything. And so once I've added my mounting brackets, I take my glue gun and just run a quick bead of glue all the way around that guy. So part of it's touching the mounting bracket and part of it's touching my sign. Just gives you a little bit of extra stability and security. And then we'll sit that off to the side so it can be drying while we work on loading our wreath with Deco mesh. If you'd like to grab some mounting squares, friends, you can. They're super cost effective. I think there's, oh my goodness, probably 100 for not many dollars, handful of dollars. I'll actually leave a link for you below, so if you need to grab some and add them to your wreath making stash, you can sure do so. I highly recommend. I'm going to show you something really quickly. We're actually going to try together for the first time in all my years of wreath making a new Deco mesh method. It's called the folded cruffle method, and the way I understand it, it basically completely, I wouldn't say completely, that's a slippery slope, nearly completely removes all of the concern of fraying. And if you're new to Deco mesh and aren't aware yet, friends, it really likes to fray the more it's handled. So I'm excited to try this new method, and we're going to try it together today. So remember, we've got 18 ties on our wreath form here, and each Chanel stem or pipe cleaner is going to get 2 folded ruffles added into it. So we've got lots of Deco mesh to prep here, friends. So we've got 3 different types of 10-inch Deco mesh here. We're going to add the black and white checked into every single pipe cleaner, but we're going to bounce back and forth between the red and the green. So we're going to need 18 cuts of the black and white checked, 9 cuts of the green, and 9 cuts of the red. And we're going to cut these at 19 inches. You can measure them out with your tape measure or ruler if you don't have a self-healing mat. You just want 19-inch cuts. And so you're just going to roll it out, find your 19-inch mark, and then cut that off. So go ahead and grab your self-healing mat or your rotary cutter, or your scissors, and go ahead and cut your 18 pieces at 19 inches in length, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, hopefully you've got a mountain of 19-inch Deco mesh cuts sitting beside you or in a basket beside you. Let's go ahead and create our first set of folded Deco mesh cruffles. So what we're going to do, friends, sit your wreath frame off to the side. You're going to take a single 19-inch piece and you're going to fold it in on itself into thirds. So if I fold it in half, fold it in a third, and fold it in a third, okay? Then you flip it over, seam side down, and then you scrunch and gather like you normally would for a cruffle. So it's definitely folded over, everything is tucked away, and you can add your first one into your chenille stems. I'm going to start at the lower level and work my way around. You can start where you like. You're going to take your folded ruffle, open up your set of pipe cleaners into a wide V, place the center of your folded ruffle all the way down to the center of your wreath base, and then give your pipe cleaner a twist to hold it in place. And then we're going to make our second folded ruffle to add into that same spot. And again, friends, I'm going to vary back and forth between the colors here. So grab your color, fold it in on itself into thirds, making sure your edges are fairly straight. And you want to leave probably, I'd say an inch or so gap from where that backside seam is to the edge. Flip that guy over so it's seam side down, and then keeping your hand stationary just like you would for a normal ruffle, pinch and gather until that Deco mesh is all bunched up in the center of your fingers. Keep a hold of that guy. Come back to where we just added in our first plaid folded ruffle. Open up those chenille stems and lay that guy right on top, all the way down at the base. Now give it a couple of tight twists to hold them both in place. And we've just added our first ever on the channel, friends. I'm so excited. Double ruffle, I should say double folded ruffle, into our first set of chenille stems. Let's do one more together here, friends, and then we'll speed through. So grab your next piece of Deco mesh, fold it in on itself into thirds, making sure your edges are lined up nicely. Leave an inch gap between that seam and the edge. Flip that guy over, and then scrunch and gather. Pinch that in your fingers. Move on to that next set of chenille stems or pipe cleaners. Open them up into a wide V. Place your Deco mesh folded ruffle all the way down to that base. Give it a tie just to hold it in place for a minute. And now we'll alternate and come to our red here. So I'm going to fold it into a thirds, making sure my edges match up nicely. Leaving an inch or two gap where the cut edge, between the cut edge and the folded edge. Flip that guy over so the seam side is down. Scrunch and gather in the middle. And we've just created our next folded ruffle. We're going to come back right where we added that black and white, open up those pipe cleaners, press this next folded ruffle all the way down to the base, right on top of that black and white one. And now give it a couple of super tight twists. And as you can see here, friends, look how nice that's going to be once we're finished. That's going to be so thick and full. I'm excited. All right, friends, let's speed through loading our wreath bays with 2 folded ruffles per pipe cleaner on both the lower and the upper levels, and then I'll meet you back here. Friends, I'd like to take a quick production pause. So As I mentioned earlier, this is the first time I've tried this method and I love it. It's going to make a very full base, but I do want to update the recipe here. So we've added 2 folded ruffles per pipe cleaner all around the lower level. I'm just getting ready to jump up to the upper level, and instead of adding 2 folded ruffles to every pipe cleaner on the upper level, I'm just going to add 1. This is just so thick that I feel like if we add 2, it's just going to be too much for the Dollar Tree wire wreath frame. I would recommend that you do just 1 folded ruffle per chenille stem on the upper level, but by the time you add your sign in, it's really not going to be seen, so it's kind of a waste of your time and deco mesh, in my opinion. Of course, proceed if you'd like, but for my purposes, I'm going to tweak the recipe a little bit for the Dollar Tree frame and add just 1 per pipe cleaner. So I'm going to do that now, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, friends, we have finished loading our wreath frame with our new deco mesh method, which I have to tell you, friends, I do believe this is the fullest I have ever seen a Dollar Tree wreath frame get in all of my wreath creations with just the deco mesh. So I love, love, love this recipe. So go ahead and sit your wreath base off to the side here. We're going to grab our sign. It should be nice and dry at this point. Normally when I attach signs to a Dollar Tree wreath, friends, I typically use chenille stems because it's a simpler, less robust wreath. But with this new deco mesh method, that's not going to be the case. So instead, I'm going to use 2 floral wire ties. If you're new to my channel, floral wire ties, friends, come in a pack of heavy tensile strength cut, usually 18 inches in length floral wire ties, much more heavy duty than the rope floral wire, and it's great for attachments on really thick wreath bases. I'll make sure to leave a link for the floral wire stems so that you can grab those if you'd like to add them to your toolkit. I'm just going to take the 1 stem, fold it in half gently, and I'm just doing that, friends, to identify that center point. I'm going to run that through one of my mounting brackets and give it a gentle twist or 2 just to keep that guy in place and from getting squirrely and sliding around. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. I'm going to fold it in half gently just to identify that center point. Run that through my bracket. Give it a twist or 2 to keep it from sliding around. It's as easy as that, friends. Because this is a round sign, I'm going to enter this smack dab in the middle here. And so, working one side at a time, you're going to lay that in the center of your wreath so you know where you want it, and then take both of these wire ties and just shove them right through your wreath. You can stick them right through your deco mesh, right through. Give yourself some patience with this, friends. That deco mesh is thick. All right, once you have both of those through, rearrange them so they're in the right spot. You want them to go around at least 2 rings, preferably the inner 2 or rings 1 and 2, but not that outer. And so we'll give it a couple of more twists and then take your wire cutters and trim off those excess bits of wire. We don't need those. And then grab your needle nose pliers, pinch those ends together, and then curl them back under and in to your wreath. That way they don't poke you or your customer or your door. Now we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. And then I like to take my glue gun, friends, and right where that floral wire meets our wreath frame, just give it a squirt of glue or 2. That'll really help hold that in place and keep it from shifting over time. I'm just going to flip this back over here, and the first thing I want to do is find those Chanel stems or pipe cleaners that are tucked up underneath our sign, and just bring them forward. How cute is this turning out to be, friends? Because this is so full of deco mesh, friends, it's probably every bit of 8 inches thick. I'm going to add a bow to the upper left-hand corner and some tails to the bottom right-hand corner, and then we'll decide if we should add tails elsewhere. So let's set this guy off to the side. And I'll show you the ribbon that I grabbed here, friends. You know, I like different widths and textures, so I grabbed some 2.5 inch black and white stripe, some 2.5 inch watermelon, and then I also grabbed 1.5 inch black and white polka dot, red and white mini polka dot, and some lime green and white stripe. We'll see how much we use of all of this. I'm kind of thinking maybe just these 4, but we'll see. I'm gonna walk through this bow pretty quickly, friends. I know that bows are really tricky to make, so if you're still new to wreath making, or if you're like me and it just, you know, you need some extra guidance making your bows, I'll leave a couple of tutorial step-by-step links below in the description of this video, so you have those and you can reference those if you'd like. You're going to need a good pair of scissors, of course, and a 6-inch zip tie. You can also use a pipe cleaner or some floral wire if you prefer. All right, friends, I've made my bow. So I've got 2 loops of the black and white striped, 2 loops of the watermelon, 2 loops of the black and white polka dot, and just a button loop in the middle of the red and white. All right, I'm gonna actually, I think it's probably gonna be better to add them to a lower level set of ties, just because this guy is so full. So once you have your bow ready, friends, make sure your tails and loops are going in the right direction. And then just get that tied down in with a pair of leftover pipe cleaners from where we added our deco mesh in. Make sure you get it securely attached, but don't sink it down so far that, you know, it sinks too deeply in and you can't really see that bow very well. Just fluffing out my loops here, friends. Making an X with the 2.5 inch loops here. Putting that black and white polka dot in the middle, and then of course our button in the very center. Oh my goodness, how cute is this? Very summery. It's got a little bit of a farmhouse vibe. Really, really liking what we've got going on here, guys. Next thing up is to trim our tails. I'm just going to cut them at the diagonal. You could certainly dovetail if you'd like. And of course, I like to vary my lengths just a little bit for extra depth and dimension, but you can cut them as long or as short as you'd like. Would just recommend that you cut gingerly. You can always take more off if you'd like, but you sure can't put it back on. We have deco mesh on our deco mesh, guys. This is an amazing method. So happy we gave it a whirl. Okay, let me throw away my bits here and then we'll work on those tails. And because we use wired ribbon, friends, it'll mold the way you want it to. And I typically put it between my fingers, pull it up and then over, and it gives it kind of this little bump, which is really cute. Might have to trim that guy a little bit more, quite a bit more actually. Got a little carried away with watermelon ribbon. Adorable, adorable. I think I'm just going to put a set of tails down here, friends, and then that'll be it because this is just so full. I normally add ribbon tails, as you know, all the way through, sometimes singles, sometimes doubles, but this beauty is just amazingly thick, and I feel like less will be more with this gal. So that's what we're going to do. I'm out of my black and white stripes, so we're just going to use the watermelon here. And eyeball how long we need it. I'm going to guess that's about 12 inches. Let's see. Oh gosh, I was way off. That's 18 inches. Then each piece I'll cut a couple inches shorter. I'm going to do my red next. My doggy is running around upstairs because he's really quite sure I shouldn't be left unattended to make wreaths. He wishes he was down here. All right, and one more tail here, friends. So the longest again was 18 inches, and each piece that I'm reducing by a couple, 2 or 3 inches, since I know we'll be trimming it. I don't want to waste it. So I'm just going to place one on top of the other, centering as I go. And once I've done that, and again, it doesn't have to be perfect, just fold that little ribbon stack in half. That'll help you identify your center point, and then you can put your thumb there. Pinch and pleat at that center point so it looks kind of like a big men's bow tie. Fold that into a V over your thumbs. And then find a set of pipe cleaners or chenille stems that you can add that into. Give it 2 or 3 tight spins. And then with your wire cutters or scissors, trim off the rest of that pipe cleaner. You won't need that. And then you can just take those tails, pull them away from the center of your wreath, angle cut each tail or dove cut, whatever you decided to do. And just like with our bow, friends, I like to cut them at different lengths so every ribbon peeks through and gets its turn in the spotlight. But you can trim them how you'd like. Then I'm just going to add a tiny touch of glue, just because that ribbon is satiny and I don't want it to slide. How sweet is this wreath, guys? We've got just one more step here, and that's to work our way through this wreath and trim off these remaining black pipe cleaner stems. You're welcome to add more tails in if you'd like. I just felt like this really had a good amount of beauty. So I'm going to run through here and trim these tails off. That is it, friends. We have trimmed out all of our excess bits of pipe cleaner, and look how simplistic and beautiful this is. A very cost-effective wreath to make. I really like the folded double deco mesh method. Okay, let's move on to the next design. Let's make this Halloween witch's hat using the Dollar Tree frame. You'll find a full materials and tools list for you below in the description of this video so that you can recreate this if you'd like to do so. We're going to start out by using our 10-inch deco mesh. You'll also need a couple of 6-inch zip ties and a pair of scissors. We're going to start out by wrapping the top portion of our witch's hat with our black deco mesh. I'm curling underneath the ends and then folding the 10-inch deco mesh in half just to give that some extra density and better coverage. We'll start by anchoring our deco mesh at the peak of the witch's hat with our 6-inch zip tie. You're just going to poke that right through your deco mesh and anchor it down to the wire frame. Be sure to trim off the excess bit of that zip tie. Go ahead and repeat that same step at the very peak of your hat, anchoring it down on that pointy end. Now we're going to wrap the top portion of our witch's hat with the black deco mesh, making sure you keep it folded in half as you continually wrap your way down to the brim of the hat. I found it easier to let my roll of deco mesh fall to the floor so that I could easily keep it gathered in half and wrap my hat. I found it easier later on to just continually spin the hat and not the deco mesh. Make sure you let that deco mesh overlap the previous layer all the way down to the brim of your hat. This part's a little bit a labor of love, but just keep wrapping. Once you reach the brim of your hat, go ahead and grab a couple of 6-inch zip ties and anchor that down to the wire frame, and then trim off the excess bit of deco mesh. Now I'm going to take my hot glue gun and add a couple of small pea-sized amounts of glue underneath the pleats to make sure that that deco mesh doesn't slide later. Now it's time to add our deco mesh into the brim of the hat. We're going to be using the 10-inch deco mesh again, 2 different colors, black and gray, and we're going to cut 12 pieces of each measured at 12 inches in length. This may vary depending on how tightly you add your mini cruffles into the brim of the hat. We'll also be adding black and purple deco mesh tubing into the mini cruffles on the brim of our hat. So we're going to need to cut 28-inch length pieces. We'll be pairing 1 piece per each cruffle, so you'll need equal amounts of the deco mesh tubing for your cruffles. All right, let's begin making our mini cruffles. We're going to stagger them along the brim of our hat. So we'll alternate between the black and the gray 12-inch pieces of deco mesh, making cruffles, and then making a figure 8 loop with our deco mesh tubing, adding a half of pipe cleaner around our cruffle and deco mesh tubing set, and then attaching it down into the brim of our hat. As we work our way through the brim, adding in our cruffle combinations, we're going to wrap the pipe cleaners around both the upper and the lower on those outer edges. And as we get closer to the center, we're going to stagger our deco mesh tubing and cruffle bundles back and forth between the upper wire of the brim and the lower wire, just to help give it extra depth and texture. On both sides, I wrapped the cruffle bundles around both the upper and the lower for just those first 4 on each of the sides. Then I began staggering between the upper and the lower, and for the few in the middle near that crossbar, I used a full-size pipe cleaner and wrapped around both the upper and the lower to really get a nice, compact, and full set of deco mesh tubing and cruffle bundles into our hat. Before I began assembling my cruffle and deco mesh tubing bundles, I did grab a handful of pipe cleaners and cut them in half and folded them into a loose V so that they were ready and available to secure the deco mesh tubing onto our cruffles. Be sure to twist those pipe cleaners really tightly so that they have a nice firm adherence, and do the same as you attach them around the wire frame of the brim of your hat. Once you've secured your cruffle bundles down around the wire frame of your wreath, make sure you take your small snips and trim off those excess bits of pipe cleaners and curl those ends under. As you can see, I paired the purple deco mesh tubing with my black deco mesh cruffle, and then I paired the black deco mesh tubing with my gray cruffles. It makes for a great color combination, and I alternated back and forth between the two. Once you've got all of your deco mesh and tubing cruffles added into the brim of your hat, go ahead and fluff those out, flip it back over, and now we're just going to run a quick bead of glue where those pipe cleaners meet the wreath frame to make sure that they don't slide around. Then give your glue a few minutes to dry and we're on to the next step. Next, we're going to make a deco mesh flower piece for the tip of our hat. I'm just going to make 5 figure eights with both the purple and the black, approximately 6 inches in total length, and I'm just going to layer them one on top of the other and secure it with a pipe cleaner. Now give that deco mesh tubing flower a good fluff, and then we're going to secure it to the tip of our witch's hat with the black pipe cleaner. Now I'm going to add some embellishments to the witch's hat. I've grabbed some purple and black Halloween flowers from the Dollar Tree and also some spiders. You can add as many embellishments as you like, just secure them with some hot glue. I'm going to be adding some of these purple foam glitter pumpkins down into the brim of the witch's hat using hot glue. Let's sprinkle in some more flowers. That's all there is to it. Okay, let's move on to our next design. Let's make an easy fall clothespin wreath. So I grabbed this Be Thankful decorative fall sign from the Dollar Tree. I also grabbed a 14-inch wire wreath frame, also from the Dollar Tree. And I expect that we'll use between 150 to 180 clothespins. And I originally had some in my cart at the Dollar Tree, but then did a quick check and discovered that they're actually cheaper at Walmart. So I grabbed 2 packs of 100. I think each pack was less than $3 at Walmart, and they're just standard size wooden clothespins. And then I grabbed a variety of acrylic paint and small paint brushes so that we can paint some of our clothespins. And of course, the paint matches our sign. I have never made a clothespin wreath, friends, so we're going to learn this together. The first thing we need to do is get our clothespins painted, so I'm going to set that wreath frame and sign off to the side and grab my painting materials. I'll be right back. All right, I've got my clothespins partially unpackaged. I'm going to go ahead and paint about 165, and we'll see how far that takes us. I just grabbed a piece of cardboard to protect my work area from paint in case I get sloppy. And I've grabbed a couple of pretty thin paint brushes. As you can see, that's a really fine, thin angle cut brush. It's actually of 1/4 of an inch angle. I feel like that's going to be a pretty good width to get our clothespins painted. And so taking a look at this sign, I want my paint colors, of course, to be complementary to the sign. So I'm going to do some natural colored. I'm not going to paint them at all. I'm going to do some black, some white, and some dark brown. So let's dive in and start painting. I don't think it's going to take much paint at all. And honestly, I'm just going to paint one side of these clothespins. I don't think we need to get too picky and paint both sides. So I'm literally just going to paint the front facing sides of these clothespins. I'm actually using some home decor chalk paint. Of course, I've also got a glass of water here to rinse out my brushes. So let's get busy painting. All right, everyone, so I've given my clothespins about an hour to dry. I just used, like I said, that wax acrylic paint, so it dried really quickly. And I've got 48 that I've painted white, 48 that I've painted black, 24 that I have in the dark brown, and then I've got 48 that I just left plain or in their natural state. I feel like those three things will go together well and really kind of give us that country farmhouse vibe, which is what I'm going for. So I'm going to set my clothespins off to the side, stacking them color on color. If you've not already done so, go ahead and plug in your hot glue gun, and we're going to start loading our clothespins onto our 14-inch wire frame. So just a little Wreath 101 for you. This is a 14-inch standard wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree, and they come just as you see them here. They're probably elevated about an inch or so, and there are 4 rings, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There are 6 crossbars. And then the distance between one crossbar and the other is what we consider a section. And we're going to add 2 layers of our clothespins. And you can certainly add these in any way that you wish. I am not 100% certain how many we'll be using. I think that we're going to have plenty here. And I'm really just going to alternate back and forth using the chocolate brown the least. And we're actually going to be adding our clothespins in on the back side. I know that's contrary to how we typically build a wreath on the wreath frame with a beveled side intended to be the top. For this particular wreath, you're going to flip that guy over and you're going to let that concave side actually be the front facing part of your wreath. And so you're just going to add your clothespin right onto the wire wreath frame. And as you can see, the wire parts of our frame on rings 1 fits into notch 1 perfectly, and ring 2 fits into notch 2 perfectly. And so we aren't going to have to glue layer 1. And I'm just going to go randomly adding in clothespins. So let's speed through our first section. We'll take a look at what it looks like. We're just going to add them in side by side, filling up our entire section. All right, I've just completed the first section, so we've got 5 more sections to go. So let's speed ahead through this part, and we're going to add our clothespins all the way around rings 1 and 2 around the entire wreath frame, and I'll meet you back here. All right, I've got the first layer of my clothespins in. I think it's looking super cute. And so now what we're going to do is basically follow our same pattern, which, by the way, if you can tell here, basically my pattern was black, white, natural, black, white, brown, black, white, natural, black, white, brown. And I've just followed that pattern all the way around the entire outer portion of the wire wreath frame. Now I need to add our second layer into our wreath. And I'm going to follow the exact same color scheme, or color pattern, I should say. However, I'm just going to make sure that I'm not going to start the same color underneath the same color, because I really want that variated look. So for instance, if I start here, I'm just going to make sure that it's not black on black. Instead, I'll have black on brown or black on white. I just don't want same color on top of same color. And for the inner layer, we're going to add our clothespin just on the innermost ring, and they're going to be floppy, but we're going to fix that in just a little bit. So when you add this in, make sure that you're getting that right within that largest groove of your clothespin. It's okay that it's floppy. We're going to fix that, and add your clothespins all the way around until you filled your entire wreath. All right, I have finished loading this wreath with my painted clothespins, and if you're going to recreate this, I will let you know that I used exactly 150 standard size wooden clothespins on this 14-inch frame, and I think it is turning out super cute. I really love the black, white, natural, and brown colors, and I'm glad I didn't throw in the orange as I had originally intended to do. So let's move on to the next step. Go ahead and grab your glue gun and glue sticks, and basically what we're going to do at this point is attach the inner ring to the outer ring, because remember, we just clip them onto one single ring, so they're floppy. So we basically need to add a pea-size amount of glue to the back of every single clothespin on this inner layer to secure it to the outer layer. So just working with a few of your clothespins at a time, just add a pea-size amount of glue to the back and just give it a good solid push. We're going to do this to every single clothespin on this lower level, guys, so we can make sure we've got a great attachment. So go ahead and take a few minutes and add your little dollops of glue to those lower level clothespins and get them secured down, and I'll meet you back here. All right, I've got all of these guys glued down, and look how stinking cute this is turning out. So the next step we need to be doing is to attach our sign down into our wreath. You can go ahead and cut off this tine hanger. We don't need that. And I'm not super happy with this plastic raffia looking bow, so I'm literally gonna pop that guy right off there. And it's okay if it pulls off a little bit of that paper. We are going to actually add a bow to our sign, and so we're going to just glue this guy right down in the center. There's no top or bottom to the clothespin base, so no worries where you put it. You could also glue it down to the side if you would like, but then you would need to wire tie it. So what we're going to do is flip our sign over and run a generous ring of glue around the outer perimeter of both sides. I don't want you to do the top or the bottom because it won't quite reach our clothespins. So making sure you have that guy centered, just go ahead and glue it right down and give it a good 30-second push or so to really give that time to attach securely. All right, I'm going to push this off to the side so that we can work on a bow. You can add your bow anywhere you would like on your wreath. I'm actually going to add mine right to the top where that plastic raffia bow was that we popped off. And because of that, I don't want my tails to be terribly long because I don't want them to interfere with the words on our sign. So we'll be making some shorter tails. And the ribbon I'm going to use will be the 1.5 inch black glitter, the 1.5 inch orange and tan leaf, possibly the solid orange, and also a little bit of this 2-inch woven lacy ribbon from the Dollar Tree. So to save time on our video, I'm going to go ahead and zoom through this bow making process pretty quickly. If you need additional instruction and help with making your bow, I will leave a link for you below in the description of this video so that you can reference that if you need to. All right, so there's just the dainty bow that I made. I've got 2 loops and 2 tails of the black, 2 loops and 2 tails of the leaf pattern, and 2 loops and 2 tails of the orange, and then just a solid piece of this cute crocheted ribbon in the back. I did dovetail all of my ends. However, I've learned with this crocheted ribbon from the Dollar Tree, you just need to leave those ends straight or they will come undone. This is actually a pretty heavy wreath. I'm going to use a floral wire stem. This is a heavy gauge 18-inch length floral wire stem to secure this bow down, because I'm going to wrap it around the stem of the pumpkin sign and one of the wires of our wreath. So I've just folded this stem in half, basically to find that center point there at the V. Making sure my loops and tails are all going the right direction, I'm going to wrap this guy right around my bow and give it a twist or two, and then grab my needle nose pliers to really make sure that's nice and tight. And then I'm going to actually run this wire through the hole that was made on the pumpkin sign, and then also on the outside. And then I'll pinch those ends together a couple more times and put them back into our wreath so that they don't poke us or our customer's door. And then I'll just add a tiny drop of hot glue right on top of those wires to ensure that no sharp edges are found by our hands or our door. And we'll give that about 30 seconds to dry. And that is it, friends. I'm just going to take a black pipe cleaner and double it up. I'll wrap that around one of the back wires so that I can hang this from the front door, and this beauty is finished. Let's move on to our last design. Let's make a Santa Christmas wreath. Go ahead and get your hot glue gun plugged in. I just grabbed the super cute Santa ho 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 sign for our wreath today. And you guys, you know, we typically, if you're not new to the channel, we typically design Dollar Tree wreaths on the 14-inch wire wreath frame. But today we're going to be using the 18-inch frame just because this sign is pretty large. It's just shy of 15 inches long and probably 12 inches wide. So I grabbed the larger frame. I thought that would be better fitting. The first thing we need to do is prepare our sign. I'm going to go ahead and cut off the hanger that came with the sign. We won't be using that, and I'll toss that away. To prepare our sign for our wreath, guys, I'm going to be using 2 mounting brackets. Here is what the top of a mounting bracket looks like and the bottom. And basically mounting brackets are one of the best tools for wreath makers to have in their toolbox. They're just 1 inch by 1 inch square. They've got openings all the way around the brackets so that you can run your floral wire or chenille stems or zip ties through the mounting brackets and then use those to attach your signs and embellishments into your wreath. They're super affordable. I'll leave a link for a package for you below in the description of this video. I'm just going to place one at the top in the center and one at the bottom in the center. Then after I attach my mounting brackets, guys, I like to take my glue gun and just run a quick stripe of glue all the way around the perimeter of that bracket, just to make sure it's got some great strength and stability. Once you get those glue stripes added around both brackets, go ahead and set your sign off to the side so that glue can be drying. While that glue is drying, we're going to go ahead and prep our wire wreath frame. So if you are new to wreath making, guys, this is a wire wreath frame from the Dollar Tree. They're beveled, and so the beveled side is the front facing side. On the 18-inch frame, you've got 3 wire rings, 1, 2, and 3. You've got several crossbars all the way around your wire wreath frame to give that frame some stability. And the distance between one crossbar and the next is what we call a section. So there's just a little Wreath 101. Today we're going to be doing the poof and double curl method with some Deco mesh. So we need to prep our wire wreath frame with some chenille stems or pipe cleaners. These are just standard 12-inch length pipe cleaners. We're going to add 3 pipe cleaners to each section all the way around our wreath frame. We're going to prep one section together and then we'll speed ahead as we load our entire wreath frame with the chenille stems. So we're going to add 1 pipe cleaner around rings 1 and 2. So I'm just going to come underneath. I'm going to eyeball to find the center, and then I'm going to give the pipe cleaner 2 tight twists like so. and then point those guys inwards. And so I'm just eyeballing, guys, not looking for perfection here at all. And I've got this first pipe cleaner centered between the two brackets. And now we're going to add 2 pipe cleaners to the middle and the outer rings, also centered as best we can. So I'm running that underneath the middle and outer ring. I'm going to give it 2 tight twists. And this time I'm going to point these guys outwards, just like so. As you can see, they're not even. That's okay. We're going to add 1 more. So I'm running that again underneath the middle and outer rings, eyeballing to find the center, giving that pipe cleaner a couple of tight twists, and pointing those guys outwards. So this is how every single section all the way around your wireframe should look once you're finished. You'll be adding 3 pipe cleaners to each section, 1 around rings 1 and 2 in the center, and 2 around rings 2 and 3. So go ahead and add 3 pipe cleaners to every single section all the way around your wireframe, and I'll meet you back here. Once you've got all of your pipe cleaners loaded into your wireframe, it should look something like this. Then I want you to grab your glue gun. I would recommend putting a scrap piece of paper or cardboard underneath your wireframe. And we're just going to take our glue gun and run a 1/2 inch or so where the pipe cleaners connect with our frame. And you only need to do that in one spot, guys, so I'm just going to go all the way around the middle ring. And that'll just keep those guys from sliding. So take a quick minute, add a 1/2 inch or so stripe of glue all the way around that middle ring where those pipe cleaners meet the wire, and I'll meet you back here. Once you've given that glue a couple of minutes to dry, we'll go ahead and begin adding in our deco mesh. For this wreath, you guys, we're going to use some iridescent solid white 10-inch deco mesh. And again, we're going to do the poof and double curl method. You're just going to need to have handy a good pair of scissors and a standard ruler. And we're going to start on the outer ring. It doesn't matter where we start on the outer ring because at this point, there's no top or bottom to our wreath. So just grab your roll of deco mesh. I'm going to unroll it a little bit, and you want that to be curl side down, not curl side up. So curl side down. And we need to anchor our mesh down into our wreath. And so what I'm going to do, guys, is just take my fingers at the edge of our row of deco mesh here. I'm going to use my thumbs to hold that deco mesh in place, and then I'm going to just scrunch and gather or crawl that deco mesh into my hand until I have a little tail. And then I'm going to take that tail and tuck it back under in my hand so that the raw edge of that deco mesh is tucked away. If you're new to deco mesh, guys, deco mesh loves to fray. So anything we can do as creators to help eliminate those raw edges is always ideal. Once you've got your little tail tucked away, keep a hold of that with your working hand and come over to your wire frame, and at any of the outer level pipe cleaners, go ahead and open up one pipe cleaner into a wide V, like so. Then grab your tail and press that tail all the way down to the base of that V so that it's sticking out on the opposite side about an inch or so. And then we're going to take that pipe cleaner and wrap it around that tail and give it 2 super duper tight twists and point those guys outwards. And we've just anchored down our deco mesh. Now that we have it anchored down, we're going to be making 10-inch poofs. And so to make a poof, guys, you're going to take your standard ruler, place it on your pipe cleaner where you've most recently left off, come out to that 10-inch mark. And again, guys, not looking for perfection. No one's going to be measuring your poofs. You're then going to scrunch and gather that mesh, just like we did a short while ago, into your hand, and then pinch it together, just like so. And then you're going to come to your very next set of pipe cleaners on the lower level, and where you've pinched that together, press that all the way down to the base of the V of that pipe cleaner, and you guessed it, give it 2 super duper tight twists, and point those guys outwards. We've just added our first poof. Let's go ahead and add one more poof together and then we'll speed ahead. So you're going to take your ruler at your most recently used set of pipe cleaners, lay that ruler down, identify your 10-inch mark, scrunch and gather that mesh to create your poof. Give myself some leeway here. And then come to that very next set of lower level pipe cleaners and open it into a wide V. Place that poof all the way down to the base of that V of your pipe cleaners and give those pipe cleaners 2 super duper tight twists and point them outwards. So we've just added our second 10-inch poof. Go ahead and follow the same method all the way around the outer ring of your wire wreath frame. And when we get to this last set of pipe cleaners, I'll meet you back here. All right, guys, we've added all of our lower level poofs except for the very last one. So we've got to get our last poof added in, and we're going to connect this last poof right on top of that tail where we started. So just like before, place your ruler down on your most recent set of pipe cleaner ties, identify that 10-inch mark, scrunch and gather your mesh to make your poof. Keep that pinched in your hand and then come over to the pipe cleaners where we started and where we anchored down that tail and gently open up those pipe cleaners. I promise it won't go anywhere. Lay that pinch from your last poof right on top of where we started, on top of that tail. Press it all the way down to the base and give those pipe cleaners a couple of tight twists. And now we've just added our last lower level poof. So now we're going to jump to the upper level and do the exact same thing. However, our upper level poofs are going to be 8-inch poofs instead of 10-inch poofs because we want those upper level poofs to recede in just a little bit so that once we're done with our wreath, this outer ring and all of its pretties really stand out. So to jump our mesh from the lower level to the upper level, you're going to grab your mesh into your hand and we're going to keep it pulled tautly. And we're going to jump to the very next available set of pipe cleaners on the upper level, coming in from behind. No poof, just a taut jump, as you can see here. And we're going to anchor that guy down. So we're pressing that mesh all the way down to the base of the V of this pipe cleaner. We're going to give it a couple of tight twists. And as you can see, no poof, just a jump from the lower level to the upper level. And now that we've anchored that down to our upper level first set of pipe cleaners, we can go ahead and start with our poofs following the exact same method that we did before. We're just going to measure the poofs at 8 inches. So take your ruler, press that on your first upper level pipe cleaner, come out to the 8-inch mark, and again, not looking for perfection, guys. Scrunch and gather that mesh into your hand. Let's get a little bit leeway here. Come over to that next upper level set of pipe cleaner ties, open it into a V. Press that pinched spot all the way down to the base of the V and give those pipe cleaners 2 tight twists. And then point those guys outwards. And you've just added your first upper level 8-inch poof. Go ahead and follow the same method all the way around that upper level set of pipe cleaners on your wire wreath frame, and I'll meet you back here when we get to the last pipe cleaner. All right, guys, it's time to add our last poof on the upper level. So just like before, place your ruler on your most recent set of pipe cleaners, come out to that 8-inch mark, scrunch and gather your mesh, and we're going to add that on top of this pipe cleaner where we made the jump. So again, I'm just going to gently open up that pipe cleaner, and then you're going to lay that last poof right on top of where we made that jump and anchor it down at the center, and give it 2 super duper tight twists. So we've just finished adding all of our poofs to our wire wreath frame, and now it's time to cut off our deco mesh. So you want to be careful that you're not cutting any of your poofs. And so I just pull that remaining bit of deco mesh tautly, and I lay my hand between my poofs and where I need to cut, just to make sure that I don't cut something that I don't mean to. I'm going to bring my scissors up a good inch or so. I don't want it to come undone, so I don't want to cut it too close. And I'm just simply cutting that mesh and releasing. On this larger frame, you're just going to have a little bit of deco mesh left. I'll show you what we'll do with that in just a moment. And so I've just finished the first step of adding our deco mesh into our wire frame. And as you can see, we've got some good coverage, but it's still pretty see-through and light and airy. So we're going to put a second layer of deco mesh into our frame, and we're going to do that by adding curls. So let's set this guy off to the side and work on cutting some deco mesh for our curls. So when you choose your deco mesh colors, guys, first of all, just remember that everything I'm showing you today is just a recipe, so certainly tweak it and adjust the colors as you wish to do so. I want my deco mesh to match my sign, and so I'm going to use white, red, and black deco mesh for my curls. So I need to prepare our deco mesh for the curls, and remember, we've got 24 pipe cleaners on our wire frame all the way around, and each pipe cleaner is going to get 2 curls. So in total, we're going to be cutting a total of 48 pieces of deco mesh. Now, that's a lot of deco mesh, guys, and my work area is small, so I'm going to do it in batches. If you've got a closed basket handy or a box, you can certainly cut everything all at once and just, you know, throw them in your box or closed basket off to the side. Otherwise, just do it in batches. So remember, we need 48, and we're working with 3 different colors of deco mesh. So we need 16 pieces of the white, 16 pieces of the black, and 16 pieces of the red. And we're going to cut these at 10 inches in length, guys. Let me straighten up my edge here first, so we have a nice clean line. By the way, if you are new to wreath making and haven't yet seen a rotary cutter, this is a rotary cutter. It's basically like a mini pizza cutter, and it allows you to cut your deco mesh quickly and with nice clean lines, and really helps to reduce that fray. These are super cost effective. I'll leave a link for you below. And then I'll also be using this self-healing mat. However, if you don't have the self-healing mat and the rotary cutter, just go ahead and grab a ruler and your scissors, and that will work just fine. And all you're going to do, guys, is cut 16 pieces, in my case, a total of 48 in any color combination you would like, of 10-inch pieces of deco mesh. So get those 48 pieces cut, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, guys, I've got my 10-inch pieces of deco mesh cut, and it's time to add the curls into our wreath base. So let's do a couple together, and then we'll speed ahead. So again, every single set of pipe cleaners on your entire wreath frame is going to get 2 deco mesh curls. And to make a curl, guys, it's super easy. I would recommend that you have a chip clip or a clothespin handy, and I'll show you why. So to make a curl, you're going to lay your piece of deco mesh in your work area, curl side up, and you're simply going to roll that piece into a cylindrical tube. Just like that. So it's probably an inch or so in diameter in the middle, and then of course it flails out. Once you roll that first tube or curl, you can then pinch that with your clip and sit it off to the side. Grab your next color, do the exact same thing. Roll that guy into a cylindrical tube, like so. And then you're going to grab that first one that you made and just lay them seam side down into a loose X, and come to any set of pipe cleaners on your wreath frame. Place the center of that X all the way down to the base of those pipe cleaners, and give them 2 tight twists, just like so. Let's do one more set together and then we'll speed ahead. So again, you're going to take your 10-inch piece, your 10 by 10 inch piece, I should say, of Deco mesh, lay it in your work area, curl side up, roll that guy into a tube, pinch it in the middle with your clip, set it off to the side, and grab your next piece. I decided to mix some green in, by the way. And again, roll that into a tube, just like so. Then place one tube on top of the other, or one curl on top of the other, seam side down, into an X pattern. Come to any set of available pipe cleaners and press that guy all the way down to the center of those pipe cleaners and give them a couple of tight twists. That's all there is to it, guys. So go ahead and add 2 curls to every single set of pipe cleaners, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, you guys, I've got all of my curls loaded into the wreath frame. So there are 2 curls added to every single set of pipe cleaners, and look how much fuller that made our base. So now the diameter of our wreath base is coming in at 26 to 27 inches in diameter. You guys, I want to take a minute and show you something. I actually had hoped that this entire wreath could be a Dollar Tree wreath, and so I grabbed some of the Dollar Tree Deco mesh, and you know that I've used it from time to time here on the channel, but quite honestly, I don't know if this was a bad batch of mesh or what the situation was, but it literally frayed horribly as I was trying to make my bundles ahead of time just to check the quality, and so that's why I went with a Deco mesh that did not come from Dollar Tree. You're welcome to use Dollar Tree Deco mesh. It won't be as full, of course, because it's only 6 inches in width as opposed to 10. Hopefully your local store isn't having the same fraying issue, but I just, I wanted to be honest with you and show you what I had experienced with my local Dollar Tree's batch of Christmas Deco mesh. So that's why we didn't use that for this tutorial. All right, guys, so let me show you the next step of the process. We're going to be adding some ribbon tails into our wreath. So remember, we've got 24 sets of pipe cleaners all throughout our wreath base. We're going to reserve one of those upper level pipe cleaners for a larger bow. So essentially we'll have 23 tails that we'll be adding in. And we're just going to add one ribbon tail to every single pipe cleaner. I'm going to use all 1.5 inch, let me turn these around, guys, wired ribbon that match our sign, and we need in total 23 tails. So we're going to cut 8 of 2 of them and 7 of 1 of them. And we're going to also add some black Deco mesh tubing bows on top of those tails that are the red and white polka dot, and just those red and white polka dot. I thought that would give a little bit of extra character, and it will tie in Santa's black boots and some of the shadowing on the toy bag and the sign. So I'm going to cut 8 of the first ribbon, 8 of the second ribbon, and 7 of the Santa ribbon. And we're going to cut those tails at 10 inches in length. And let me show you a quick way to cut your tails, guys. Just lay your ribbon out, and either with your self-healing mat or your ruler, whatever you have handy, go ahead and identify that 10-inch mark and then just pinch it with your finger. Again, not looking for perfection. And then you just fold it accordion style onto itself the number of times that you need to for the coordinating pieces. And again, we need 7 of these Santa pieces. So there's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Once you have the total number of pieces you need, that worked out good. Go ahead and cut off that remaining bit of ribbon. And so you've got this accordion stack of ribbon at the length that we need. And then I'm going to make sure those ends are married up. I'm going to angle cut. You could also dove cut. So to angle cut, I'm going to come down about 1 inch or so and then cut up diagonally to the corner. And then I'm going to flip that ribbon stack around, make sure those ends are married up nicely, and do the exact same thing. So then what we were able to do really quickly, guys, is measure out all of our ribbon tails for the number of pieces that we need and trim our ends the way we wanted to in a quick fashion. So go ahead and do that for all of your ribbon types so that you have a total of 23 ribbon tails cut at 10 inches in length, and then trim your ends, and I'll meet you back here. Now that we have all of our ribbon tails trimmed and ready to go, let's get our Deco Mesh tubing pieces cut. We're only going to need 8 pieces of this because we're only going to match it with our red and white polka dot. If you've never worked with Deco Mesh tubing, by the way, this came from the Dollar Tree. It's basically just like standard Deco Mesh. It's just in a tube form, about the width of a standard pencil, maybe a little bit wider. And what you don't want to do when you work with Deco Mesh, guys, is pull on it because that makes it go flat and kind of takes away that form. So as you work with it, just let it lay organically in your hand. And we're going to cut 8 pieces at 20 inches in length. So once you measure that first piece, you can just use that as your guide. And again, don't pull on it tautly, just let it lay organically. Cut 8 pieces, and then I'll meet you back here. Now that we've got our ribbon tails and our Deco Mesh tubing pieces cut and ready to go, let's go ahead and grab our wreath base and bring that back to our workstation. And what we're going to do, guys, is add 1 ribbon tail to every single pipe cleaner on our entire wreath base, except for 1 on the upper level. At this point, our wreath doesn't have a top or bottom, so it doesn't matter which set of pipe cleaners on that upper level you leave empty. Just make sure you do so. We've got 3 different ribbon types here, guys, and so I'm just going to go in a pattern all the way around my wreath base. Let's do 3 together, and then we'll speed ahead. I'm going to start on the lower level, but it truly doesn't matter. So you're going to grab 1 single piece of ribbon. You can either identify the center by eyeballing it, or if you're more comfortable, fold that guy in half. And then that line, or that crease, is your center. You're going to pinch and pleat that in the middle of your ribbon. Fold that into a loose V over your thumb. And then you're going to come to any set of pipe cleaners and add that guy in. Just place that middle piece all the way down to the base of that pipe cleaner, and give that pipe cleaner a couple of tight twists. And then using a good pair of scissors or some small snips, you can trim off that excess bit of pipe cleaner because we won't be adding anything else in once we get our tails added. Then I just take my fingers and poke that little nub, just kind of tuck it back and under, and I fluff out my tail. And by fluffing out a tail, guys, I just pull it into a V shape away from the center of the wreath. And now I'm going to spin the wreath, move on to my second ribbon type. Again, I'm going to eyeball to find that center, pinch and pleat, fold that into a V over my thumb, come to my very next set of pipe cleaners, add that ribbon tail all the way to the base of those pipe cleaners, give them 2 or 3 super tight twists, trim off that excess bit of pipe cleaner, and then just curl that pipe cleaner nub back under out of the way and fluff out that ribbon tail. All right, let's move on to the next. So now we're going to do the red and white polka dot with a Deco Mesh tubing bow on top. So just like before, guys, we're going to identify that center, pinch and pleat, fold it into a loose V over my thumb, come to my next set of pipe cleaners, place that ribbon tail all the way down to the base of that V, give it a couple of tight twists, and now we're going to add a Deco Mesh tubing bow right on top of that before we fluff it out. So you're going to take your piece of Deco Mesh tubing, and remember, we're not going to pull it because we want it to maintain that shape. Take one end and lay it in your hand so you've got a couple inches of tail, and you're just going to make a figure 8 like so. You want a tail on both ends so that it doesn't come undone. You'll pinch that guy in the middle. You're going to add it right on top of that red and white polka dot. Give that pipe cleaner 2 or 3 tight twists and trim off that excess bit of pipe cleaner, just like we did earlier. Fold that little nub of pipe cleaner back and out of the way and fluff out your ribbon tail, and then just let that figure 8 or that deco mesh bow lay as it wishes. We're going to follow the same pattern all the way throughout our entire wreath, guys, with the exception of 1 pipe cleaner at the upper level. Make sure you leave that empty, and then I'll meet you back here. All right, you guys, now we've got all of our ribbon tails and our deco mesh tubing bows loaded into our wreath base, and look how stinking cute this guy is coming together. Adorable. So hopefully you've left 1 set of pipe cleaners on the upper level empty for a bow. But the next step is we're going to add our sign. So if this were a clock, guys, we're going to add our sign in the bottom right hand quadrant, or half I should say, since it's a pretty large sign. And then we'll be placing a bow over here in our empty set of pipe cleaners. So remember, we added those mounting brackets and glued them down earlier. They're nice and dry. I just grabbed some 16-inch lightweight floral wire stems that we'll be using to anchor this guy down. I just folded it into a V to identify that center point. And I'm going to run that through my upper bracket, give it a loose twist or 2 just so it doesn't slide out, and then we'll do the same thing with the lower, folding that guy into a loose V, running that right through the bracket and giving it a loose twist or 2. And now we'll anchor this guy down. So just determine where you want to place your sign. It can be to the far right or to the central right. And then run those floral wire stems down directly right through your mesh and around the frame of your wreath. And I'll meet you back here. Let me just show you real quick here, guys. If you can see, I have poked those floral wire stems through, and if you have the availability to do so, it's always nice to run it on opposite sides of a cross beam. It just helps that guy to keep from sliding. I just do a couple of loose twists to hold it in place. I flip it back around to make sure it's where I want it, and it is. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Once you're happy with the placement of your sign, go ahead and flip it over one more time and give those floral wire stems 3 or 4 tight twists. You want it at about 80% tension so it's nice and secure, but you don't want it so tight that it recesses into your wreath base. And then you can snip off those excess bits of floral wire. Then I just grab my small needle nose pliers and I kind of curl those ends. I pinch them together and then I curl them back into our wreath, just so it doesn't poke us when we grab it, nor does it scratch our door. And then I run a tiny 1/2 inch bead of glue right over that wire bit and the frame. And I'm going to spin this around and do the same thing on my second wire. Now this one I wasn't able to get around a crossbar, so I just have it close to a pipe cleaner. I've given it 4 or 5 tight twists at 80% tension. We'll trim off those excess bits and then pinch the ends of that floral wire together and just curl them back into the wreath so they're not poking us. And then I'll just run a little dollop of glue right over that wire and that chenille stem. We'll give it a couple minutes to dry. All right, guys, our sign is attached down and it's looking super cute. I'd just like to take a minute here and pull those ribbon tails and mesh curls out from underneath that sign that inevitably, you know, get tucked away while we're adding that guy in. So stinking cute. So let's add super cute bow down into our pipe cleaners. You guys, I've already made this bow off camera. I actually made this on last week's Christmas bow tutorial. I'll link that for you below so that you can make this. It's super easy. It involves hot glue, so it's a great beginner bow. And we're just going to tie that down at this set of pipe cleaners. All right, guys, last but not least, I've got a handful of these 1-inch lime green and red pom-poms. I've also got some mini 1-inch white ones. I'm going to sprinkle these throughout the wreath. And to attach them down, guys, you just need to put a full squeeze or a dime size amount of glue right on your pom-pom. You could also use jingle bells. And add them in right on top of where that Chanel stem or pipe cleaner tie was that we trimmed off, kind of at the base of those ribbon tail V's. Press them down and give them about a 15-second hold and move on to the next. I'm going to just sprinkle them throughout. I'll probably put, a dozen or so. We'll see how that looks. All right, you guys, this beauty is finished. How stinking cute did this turn out for a very affordable Christmas wreath? I hope you enjoyed creating with me today. If you did, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my little channel to grow. Thanks for spending time with me today, friends. Happy crafting.